Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to Wilcox Tech. My name is Stacy Buckus. I have the privilege of being the newly appointed principal here. I'd just like to tell you a little bit about our school. We have about 800 students that we serve in 13 career technology areas from the greater Meriden area. At this time, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Wibby, our superintendent.
Good morning. I believe it's still morning. I never sure with the 12 o'clock if it's morning or afternoon, but we're happy to have you here no matter what it is. I want to thank all of you for being here and joining us for what will be a great conversation. Now, we have many dignitaries here. I do want to mention a few people and recognize some folks here that are with us. First, I'd like to recognize Mayor Scarpati, Presidents Tom Katsoulias from UConn, and President Marco Jakin from the Board of Regents. We also want to welcome Commissioner Kurt Westby from the Department of Labor, and Commissioner Westby also serves on the CTEX board, so we're so happy to have you here. Would also like to recognize the co-chairs and the ranking members of the Education Committee, Senator Doug McCrory, Representative Bobby Sanchez, Representative Kathleen McCarty, along with many other elected officials who have graciously joined us here today, including State Board members, State Department of Education members, and CTEX board members here today. Today we're excited to welcome our new commissioner, Dr. Miguel Cardona, to the broader advocate community, many of which have worked for years to craft important education policy. And it's equally exciting to do that with our Governor, Ned Lamont, as he discusses his education priorities and vision for the state. As you can see, we chose a different setting so we can really hear from the commissioner and the governor together on their aligned goals. Additionally, we're excited to hear directly from the students who are often impacted by the policies that we create. Without further delay, I'd like to introduce our moderator for the first portion, Christine Stewart. She's the editor at CT News Junkie, and Commissioner Miguel Cardona, as well as Governor Ned Lamont. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you guys for joining us here today. We're going to get right down to it. I'm also reporting on this, so I'm recording. Governor Lamont, a lot has changed in education over the years. I think a lot of people may be wondering what an education system envisioned by Governor Ned Lamont looks like and whether there's any desire to change what's currently in place. Can you lay out your vision for education and possibly discuss what efforts you might make in trying to regionalize school districts in the future?
All right, let's skip the small talk and get right into it, I say. I just want to say, first of all, that Miguel Cardona and I are really enthusiastic about being with you here today. Miguel just came on board as our Commissioner of Education. I cannot be more proud. And you're going to see why, Christine, Miguel is going to be transformative in terms of what we try and do with education. I'd like to just give a shout out to Tom Katsoulias. He's our new president of UConn, and you guys all get your act together. You got the chance to go to UConn, one of the great universities on this earth. I'd like to just say one thing broadly, if I could, that, Florida sells sunshine, and Texas has oil, and North Dakota has fracking, and you go with what your strengths are. And Connecticut, our strength has always been an amazing school system, K through 12, right through to our university system, and the best trained and best educated workforce in the world. And that's why to all the students who are here, you know, we are proud that Connecticut is your home. We're going to make sure you have the best education possible and that you have every opportunity. We want you to stay here in this state. Look, we have, it's no surprise that we make the most sophisticated jet engines in the world and the most complicated nuclear-powered submarines and helicopters that the Chinese can't figure out how to do. Because Connecticut has that skill base. And that's a big piece of what we're trying to do with education. And Christine, to your point, if I had one thing I'd be thinking about, Miguel's going to talk about this as well, it's about skills, and it's about vocation, it's about STEM, and it's about making sure you're prepared for a 21st century economy. But it's also about good people and good citizens and educating the whole person, and making you enthusiastic about learning, and a great local school where your community can be involved. And those are, I think, my priorities. I think they're Miguel's priorities as well going forward, and to build on the great base that we have. And a special shout out to our teachers. You know, teachers take a lot of heat in this day and age, and it's more complicated than it's ever been to be the teacher in the 21st century. So, treat your teachers with respect, and I think we in the public should treat our teachers with a great deal of respect as well, and thank them every day for the great work that they do.
So, Commissioner Cardona, I know you've only been on the job for a little while here, but maybe you can tell us, what is Connecticut doing well now, and what can we do better?
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Glad to be here with the governor. Glad to see the board here and members of our team at the State Department of Education. As a former student of Wilcox, I walked the halls here sometime last century. Proud to be back as a Commissioner of Education. Connecticut does many things well. We have high-performing students who go on to lead and do amazing things around the world. And we have an opportunity now to continue to provide opportunities so that all kids can be successful, to make sure that we raise the bar so all kids have opportunities to join the workforce and go to college, whatever they choose, and be successful in whatever they choose to do. We have plenty of opportunity for that.
Connecticut still has an achievement gap. What do you do as commissioner to close that achievement gap?
So one of the things that I'm most passionate about is ensuring equity for all kids and making sure that every child in Connecticut has the opportunity to be successful in life. That's our charge. That's why we got into this profession. And for me, it really is important that, number one, we address it. We say it. We say we have an achievement gap issue and that it takes all hands on deck. Not be apologetic about the bold initiatives that are needed to address it. So we need to look at it, we need to talk about it, we need to bring stakeholders around the table. And I'm really pleased, and I don't think it's coincidental today that the way we're set up, this room is set up, it's nice to see so many dignitaries and folks that have service in our state. But at the end of the day, the students are in the center here today. And that's how it should be, that's how I'm going to lead, and that's how we're going to put our heads together in the state of Connecticut to make sure that we keep students at the center of the decisions we make, to ensure a viable, quality curriculum for all kids, to ensure that we're giving the teachers the support that they need and the tools that they need to meet the, as the governor stated, the complex needs that there are in our schools. Our kids are coming in with greater need, and we have to ensure that our teachers are given the tools to be successful, and that we partner with agencies that also have the interest in making improving the outcomes for kids. So partnering with districts, with community partners and business partners to ensure that our kids are getting the support that they need, not only in the schoolhouse, but outside of the schoolhouse.
Governor, does Connecticut's education system right now currently have the resources that it needs? And what do you plan to do about funding ECS? I know that there's been this this phase-in of ECS and the grants and how they go to lower-income communities and the alliance districts, which was created under your predecessor. How do you go about funding education?
Well, we could always use more resources. I appreciate that, but I can tell you, as I went around the state a lot over the last couple years, I heard from every superintendent and principal that even if I'm not going to get a lot more money, get me a budget on time, numbers that I can count on, numbers I can plan around. And that's one thing we did in this budget was we held everybody harmless. We got a little more money into our toughest school districts, some of our urban school districts. Somewhere we have an achievement gap. We've got to do more. We got a budget done on time. And if I had other priorities going forward, it starts with what Miguel said in terms of more teacher prep, more teacher training, doing everything I can to give our best teachers an incentive to go to some of our toughest school districts, want to stay there so there's not quite as much turnover as there could be going forward. I love what we're doing with some of the folks in the private sector. You probably heard about the Dalio Foundation. We've committed now $200 million, and we're looking for teachers to come up with the very best ideas in terms of preschool and after-school activities and mentoring, and some of the ideas that maybe come from some of you, so we can get not only the resources, but the enthusiasm and respect back in the education.
Can you do that regarding the Dalio Foundation and the grant for that without more added transparency?
No, I think we're government. Government, people want to know what's going on. They want to have insights into what our thinking is. So there will be a process that's transparent. As Christine, as you know, the board of this foundation is made up of teachers. It's made up of folks from the private sector, and it's also made up of political leaders. So it's a good mix, and you'll know everything going on there.
Okay, and that's starting soon. That's probably
I think
later
the
on this
first
month.
meeting is going to be end of next month.
Okay, and Commissioner Cardona, you talked about some initiatives to help improve the achievement gap. What are some of those initiatives? Just give me some concrete examples of what we can do.
Some of the messages, some of the content of the message that I shared with superintendents, and we got to go back to the instructional core. How are we engaging students in their learning process? How are we listening to students to shape the educational program that they have so that students are less likely to be disengaged from school? What content are we providing students? Do we have high quality materials in front of kids in every school in Connecticut? Oftentimes, achievement gaps are a result of poor quality content, right? So you can have great pedagogy, but yet the materials that we put in front of kids sometimes are lower than the expectation we should have for them. Oftentimes, under-resourced districts are scrambling to put together materials, so we as a State Department of Education need to be bold about saying, how can we support you? And as I said earlier, ensuring a teacher workforce with the skills that they need to meet the needs of the kids, not only with the reading, writing, and arithmetic, but the social-emotional development. So executive functioning is something that I would like to see a lot more in our kindergarten classroom. Ask any kindergarten teacher, what do you think the kids need most of? They need to have time to learn how to share, to take turns. Right? You have a little one yourself. So that's what we need to make sure that we don't forget the developmental appropriateness of children, so that we're not looking at 4 or 5-year-olds in November and saying, does this kid have a learning disability, or should this kid not be in school? So we need to raise the bar. We need to make sure that we have high expectations for kids, great resources. We also need to partner with our agencies, because kids can't learn if they're hungry. They don't learn as well if they're hungry. They don't learn as well if their teeth hurt. They don't learn well if they have housing instability. So we need to partner with other sister agencies and other like-minded groups that want to help partner with us to address some of those issues that do affect a child's what's referred to as their bandwidth for learning, right? So we have to work with sister agencies to do that. I'm excited about working with other commissioners in the state of Connecticut to see where our work overlaps, so that we could, at the end of the day, provide the best product for the customers we serve, which are our students.
And Governor, you signed a minority teacher recruitment bill this year to get more teachers of color in the classroom. Connecticut continues to employ an overwhelming 91.4% of white teachers, while educators of color account for 8.3% of the state's total teaching staff. Can you share some of your thoughts on why teacher diversity is important?
So I walked into Harding High School down in Bridgeport, where I had been a volunteer many years ago, to announce a minority recruitment program, and the Harding choir was there as a backdrop, and they started singing a song about, I came to high school wondering if I'd have a teacher who looked like my mother. And I never wondered about that. And it's really important that kids have folks that they identify with. And I've heard that wherever I go. And that just is more than just people of color teaching. I want more guys going into teaching as well. I want role models in there. I want people that young people really can look up to and identify and say, this could be me, you know. And in Harding, when I was there, I worked really hard to get members of the community involved. For me, it was the business guys. I got folks in there and helped to bring a really dull accounting class to life, I hope, and by people telling stories, and people that didn't look like me, and people that gave kids the sense that I could do this too. So, yeah, we've got a program in place. We're going to be recruiting hundreds of teachers. We've relaxed more teachers of color, more men, more folks going to our toughest school districts. We've changed some of the certification, make it easier for folks to come in from out of state, providing additional training, incentives, mortgage incentives, loan forgiveness, to make sure the very best, widest diversity of teachers want to go into teaching. And I hope some of you want to go into teaching. There's no better profession.
So, Commissioner Cardona, what are you doing to align Connecticut's education system with its workforce needs?
So I'll jump into that,
Yeah.
but first, to echo the governor's remarks on diversifying our workforce, it's no surprise we're having a hard time with that when we have gaps where black and brown kids are not graduating at the rates that they need to be. What we need to do is get K-12 right to make sure that those students have the opportunity to consider teaching as a profession, to go to college to be a teacher. So let's get K-12 right while we're also incentivizing, as the governor mentioned, incentivizing folks to teach in urban areas and reduce that revolving door of transiency among staff. So we need to get K-12 right and make sure that our black and brown students are achieving at high levels and graduating at high levels so that when they go to college, they can have that option. If their experience in high school is good, then they're going to want to come back to change the high schools. I know my decision to become a teacher was influenced by a teacher that had a positive impact on me. And I know that diversifying the pipeline means making sure that we're doing right by kids in our K-12 system. So that's critical. The partnerships with businesses. So the first step is really looking at the agency, the State Department of Education. Are we designed to get results that improve college and career readiness? I don't believe we are yet. I believe that the first step for me is to really re-examine what we do as an agency, how we're designed, how we're programming. Do we have people that are whose job it is to ensure that we're doing better in the state? So once that process happens, we're going to embark on a partnership crusade, if you will, with businesses, large and small, to say, we need you. And we want them at the drawing board, not at the end when we want them to sign off on something that we created. We want businesses at the table on day one to say, this is what we need. How can we work together to design programming in middle school to give students pathways to employment opportunities that exist today? I'm not talking about jobs of 10 years from now. I'm talking about there are jobs now that we could do a better job preparing our students for. And my intention is to design our agency to make that part of our core work. And then once we do that, we're going to bring partners on board to get this moving. And it should happen very, very soon.
Do you do that on a school-by-school basis? Or, I mean, are we focused on technical high schools at the state to be able to partner with manufacturing companies in the community?
A little bit of both, right? So the technical schools do a fantastic job. They're designed for that. See, so you get better results when you're designed that way. All comprehensive high schools should have some design element that prepares students for that college pathway or career pathway or both. I'm an example that you can come to a technical high school but still be able to go to college and take that pathway if that's your choice. So I think the answer to that is both. All schools should provide great pathways for students.
Governor, is more money towards education going to solve all of its problems, or what can we do to more fairly align our resources with the children who need it?
Well, I think we're doing that. We've got a new formula. It's shared that more money goes to the folks most in need. We're putting some money in terms of innovation and new programs like we talked about that really empower teachers. You know, what I want to do is give teachers more opportunity to experiment and try new things. I mean, I appreciate accountability. I know the importance of testing, but I also know how important it is, that joy in the classroom and the joy of teaching. And so I'll move away from resources a little bit on that, Christine, and just talk about, I want to make sure that people realize the importance of education. And I want to say one other thing to the young people here. I mean, we talk about vocation and, learning the skills you need. I mean, Miguel, you said you were here, you were training to be a mechanic, right? An auto mechanic. Now, Commissioner of Education. So you never quite know where your life is going to lead you. So I would tell you also, do things you love. Follow your heart. Follow your passion. I mean, we brought this company called Infosys. It's an IT training company, computers, and they wanted to affiliate with another school. And I said, well, you probably want to do, one of our engineering schools. And they said, no, we want to go to a liberal arts school because we want to affiliate with a school where people continue to learn, continue to think, continue to ask questions. So at your age, don't focus too tightly on exactly what you want to do. Find your passions and find your love, and you'll find the ideas come from there.
So I just also wanted to touch on Commissioner Cardona. The Common Core state standards, we have had those in place since 2014. Are they working for all students, or is there something that should be changed? I know you were also on the commission that looked at applying some of these test scores from the Common Core to the teacher evaluation, which ended up not happening.
Correct. Right. So the first thing I want to say is that one size never fits all. I was a teacher, still a teacher at heart. One size doesn't fit all. So to go one extreme or the other, I think I'd caution against that. There's a lot of gray. So for me, having high standards that are pretty universal matters, because there's how can I ensure that students that are living in less resourced areas are achieving at the same high level as students in more resourced areas? So for me, it's really making sure that we have high standards. Rising tide raises all ships. With that said, I'm not deaf to the challenges that there are out there, especially in under-resourced districts, where they may have less staff to help implement some of the strategies, or they don't have the materials that they need to provide the support for students that are 2-3 years grade level below. With that said, I want to caution against the ay bendito effect, right? So the ay bendito effect is, while these kids are dealing with so much, let's not expect what we would expect in a different community, because those kids are going to be competing with those kids for jobs later. They're going to be competing with those kids for college admission. So high standards, I'm all about high standards. Do I think one size fits all? Of course not. And I think one of the things that I'm excited about doing in the department now is ensuring that we're providing resources and support for the districts that need it, that want high expectations for their kids, but just need more tools in their toolbox to get the job done.
And Governor Lamont, we'll probably be ending on this, but I wanted to know how much of a focus should there still be in the state on desegregating our schools?
My first priority is to have great local schools where the community can be involved and parents can be involved in a diversified setting. Chef V. O'Neill inspired this state to do better when it comes to doing that. I think a little bit in terms of some of our urban school districts are pretty full and at capacity and growing fast. And some of those ring districts outside of, say, Waterbury are underpopulated or less fully at capacity. So I think there's some opportunity for sharing there in terms of students being in a more diversified setting and building up and energizing the school districts in the region as well. So I think we got a lot of work to do there, Christine, but I think every parent I talk to says, look, I want the very best opportunity for my kids. And if that's a school across town, if that's, I'll want my kid to be there. But there's nothing better than having a great local school where I can be more involved.
Is that a signal that we'll be seeing another regionalization proposal from you come next year?
I think I learned a little bit on that one. And the politicians really had fun. Here's the deal. We're one of the few states in the country that spends more education money outside of the classroom than inside of the classroom. And I prize our 169 towns and our 160 plus superintendents and deputy superintendents. But in terms of those back office functions, if I can bring down those costs, if we purchase school buses together, we purchase IT together, we do health insurance together, there's a real opportunity to save some money in there and put more money in the classroom, making sure we get the very best opportunity. I can only do that by working with the local schools and the local superintendents, and that's what I'm going to try and do for the next 4 years.
Okay, great. Thank you guys so much. We're actually going to... I'm going to turn this back over to Chris, and he's going to turn it over to the students.
Thank you, Christine. Let's give this panel one more round of applause. So if I can ask the governor and our commissioner to join us at the table, and we're going to get into our student portion. And thank you, Christine. Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us here. My name is Chris Soto. I'm the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Governor. And again, we want to hear from the students. Oftentimes, we're passing policy at the Capitol, and these are the students that policy directly impacts. And so I'm going to start with a very simple question, one that resonates, I think, with the governor and the commissioner. The governor referenced his time at Harding High School. The commissioner referenced his time as a teacher. And so, Manny also talked about his, let me back up a little bit. The students came very prepared. They came prepared with questions and answers. They knew they were going to be in front of our commissioner and governor. And so Manny, one of our students, referenced his favorite teacher and those qualities when he thinks about his favorite teacher. And it's a very simple question, but it's one that we think of often. And so I'm going to throw it to Manny to talk about his favorite teacher and what are some of those qualities that make up a favorite teacher, and then maybe if our commissioner and governor can add some reflections.
Well, about my favorite teacher, I would say one of the most important things is she makes time for the students to speak to her and ask questions. It's not like you're sitting there and she's just talking to you with the class. It's very interactive. We go into the class every day knowing you're going to do something different. There's a large amount of group work with the students, and a lot of times it's not a set assignment. You get in there and it might be an option to do maybe 4 different things. I really enjoyed it. This was for a language class. So we would do something, we would maybe read Shakespeare, we'd read Hamlet, and we'd all read a different scene, and, we'd want to explain how we proceed the scene to other class. So she'd give us maybe say, okay, you can act out this scene. You can make a song actually explaining how you proceed the scene, and then she just gives you a lot of different opportunities to do things. And I think having a teacher that uses a lot of group work and allows students to interact with each other instead of the teacher really just teaching things, I think it's really important. One of the most important points she made was she was actually working for a master's degree, and we were having a conversation about that because she was talking about her thesis, I believe. And she was one of the, I think her topic was talking about the separation of students between like honors classes and things like that, because it seems like, once you get to a certain level, the students are just separated from each other. And I think a point that she made that really resonated with me is that students learn best from each other. And I think interactions between students are very, very important. And I think the way that she lets the class interact with each other, but serving as like some type of moderator in that setting is really important to me. And that's why she's my favorite teacher.
So, Manny, could we name that teacher, please?
Sherry McCullough. She's a...
Sherry McCullough.
Yes.
It's important to name them because those are people that have influenced your life. So you brought out something that I think is critically important, and you brought it out really well. Someone reminded me when I was starting the profession of teaching, he said, Miguel, don't forget, you teach kids, not curriculum. And that teacher gets that, right? So while I love high curriculum standards, at the end of the day, it's about kids growing and becoming young adults that can make decisions. So she engaged you in the learning. She gave you options. So whether you do a rap song or you do a poetry or whatever, she gave you that option to learn and then made it engaging. So thank you for sharing that. That at the end of the day, this profession is a people business, and our job is to work with kids and help them grow. Thank you for that. And thank you for acknowledging your teacher.
So I want to switch gears a little bit. I know the governor has a few minutes, and I want to turn it over to Olivia. And before this, Olivia had really jumped on this idea around suggestions, especially linking the school system to businesses, and that's something that we heard on stage, especially as the governor spoke. And so, Olivia, could you share some of those ideas and suggestions that you talked about?
Yeah, of course. So I am entering my senior year of high school. It is an extremely stressful time. This is very, very stressful. This is the time when students are starting to think about where they want to go to college, what they want to major in, what they want to do for the rest of their lives. And I think the biggest challenge that we're facing at this point is students are really unsure of what they want to do. This is a huge decision that's going to affect the rest of their lives, and I feel like a lot of students are not being exposed to all of the different careers out there. So I actually had an idea that I would like to share with you both. I was thinking maybe what we could do is develop a network of internships, volunteer opportunities, job shadowing. That way students can gain experience in a variety of fields, and eventually they can feel more comfortable and confident, you know, when they pick a major and decide what they want to do for the rest of their lives.
First of all, is this thing on? Don't let your parents stress you out. Senior year should be great. And nobody has a clue what they want to do for the rest of their lives in senior year. And to your point, Olivia, I love it. Experiment a little bit. Try out some different things. If it's in academia, try out some courses that aren't necessarily in your sweet spot. And when it comes to, internships and the such, like Miguel and I are really focused on making sure that you have a chance to see what all these different professions are about. I go to all the business leaders, because they're saying, look, we're running out of people. I need people who can build submarines and teach or nurse or whatever it might be. And I said, well, you better get them while they're here in Connecticut and talk to them and tell them what the profession is all about. I mean, up in Hartford, Stanley Black & Decker, which, is a tool company, they've created a floor which is the advanced manufacturing display. Because, you and I maybe think manufacturing is kind of gritty and dirty and not really what I want to be. And it's amazing what it is in the 21st century. And it's a great paying job. It's a good job. And so we're trying to expose young people to what these things can be. But my basic message is have some fun. You're a senior in high school. You've got a great high school in Portland. I hope you find some teachers. Find, like Manny did, find a teacher that you get to know and gets to know you. And maybe some of it takes place in the classroom, some of it takes, extracurricular, and find those people, learn from them, and reach out.
Thank you.
And with that suggestion, there might be an internship at the State Department of Education.
Yeah.
So one topic that I think sometimes gets overlooked is our rural communities. And I know we have Abby here with us, and she also had some thoughts that she'd like to share and some of the challenges that our students face in our rural districts. Abby?
Thank you. So I come from a very, very small town and community, and at my high school, there's not as many opportunities as you would have at schools that have 800 kids, where mine only has 200. And so I think if we're able to incorporate more classes that are diverse instead of just having English, history, math, science, if we get more almost like career classes that could specify on things, that would really help provide opportunities for our schools that don't have much resources to go to and help our kids. And also, another problem I find with small towns is with the resources we have, we send our kids to college with less than others might. So, for example, if we don't have some class that a kid would like to take, but they want to get a career in that, if we can provide them with that, they'll get to college equally with other students and have a fair shot to get far in our world. So I think trying to help out the rural communities with more opportunities and more guidance for our students would really help. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you for that comment. You really bring out an issue that has to be at the forefront of our agenda. The opportunities that you say you're not getting because of the limited size of the school provides great opportunities for innovative thinking. So what programming could be offered online? There was this great thing we did here in Meriden when I served in Meriden of opportunities, PLEs, personalized learning experiences out in the community where you can get high school credits. And I know a lot of districts are now wondering, how do I get to these 25 credits? How do I give choice for kids to be successful? Well, you can think outside the box and maybe do partnerships at internships where you can get those real-life business experiences and have a teacher help you create that learning pathway so that you could get that real-life experience. And I get what you're saying. Colleges are looking at your transcript. So you're going to want to see your transcript should be as competitive as someone else's. Having those experiences, we really need to be innovative together. I love your thinking, and I hope that you continue to have those conversations in your district, and maybe we can partner with East Granby to see how we can support their work there.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
So also on stage, we heard talk about the minority teacher recruitment bill that was passed this session. I think that was done with the help of a lot of our partners, especially in this room, our legislative friends and the advocates out in the audience. It was definitely a priority for our governor. And I know that Eugene also had some thoughts on why it's so important to have teachers of color. And so maybe, Eugene, you can share some thoughts.
Good afternoon, Governor, Commissioner. I am a senior at Wilcox Technical High School here in Meriden, and here there's only a total of 2 African-American teachers, and I find it very difficult for some students to receive the material that is being taught, especially because we're in a technical high school system. And I feel like for a diverse community, we all have different students that come to this technical high school, coming from Hamden, Southington, Cheshire, Wallingford, Meriden itself. And I, for one, am a firm believer that it takes a village to help students leave a place just like Meriden with a strong education so they can come back and help out the other younger students to excel in the workforce. And I just feel that if we'd had more minority teachers, like it doesn't matter if they're Latino, if they're African American, Caucasian, it would help students take more from the classroom. And I definitely believe that with help from you guys, we can achieve that goal.
First of all, I want to commend you because I know it's not easy to talk about. I commend you for bringing that up and being bold enough to say, I'm willing to do that. So I want to applaud you for that. I was where you are now. I get it. I totally get it. And I'm really pleased with the work of the legislators and the governor on bringing this issue to the forefront and making sure that we pass legislation to do something. But I agree, Eugene, we got to double down. We have to double down. We have to make sure that our kids are graduating high school thinking of themselves as potential teachers. I want you to leave here, say, I could be a teacher. My godson, who graduated from here 2 years ago, is now studying education at UConn. And I'm proud of that decision that he made, just like I did. So there's a lot but it's going to take students. I really feel like students are going to be partners in this process. If we're serious about diversifying the workforce, we're going to need you to be leaders in this too. You're going to be partners in the process to say, teaching, if I want to change it, I have to be a part of it. So I want you to take that responsibility as well. Just like you courageously spoke about it now, I want you to help us do a better job because we owe it to the students of Connecticut. Not only students of color deserve to see teachers of color. Students that are not from different diverse backgrounds need to see diversity in the classroom. So thank you, Eugene. Thank you.
So, Governor, I know you do have to run to your next engagement, but do you have any, and that doesn't mean that the panel's over, because this is some great conversation. We're going to keep this going. But, Governor, do you have any last thoughts as we close out before you head off?
Well, I'll tell you that I'm on my way to New London, which is where Electric Boat is, and they make submarines. And the Secretary of Defense is coming up from Washington, D.C. And this guy's, saying, is this a place where we want to stay and continue to, build boats and submarines? And one of the first things they're going to be looking at is to make sure that there's a workforce for the 21st century that he can count on over the next 10 years. And one of my jobs is to say we've got a school system, we have housing, and we have the technical training, so you can count on the fact that Connecticut provides what you're going to need going forward. And that's where I got to go. But I'm just looking over your shoulder, Chris, and this poster there says, the new art and science of teaching. I don't know if it's new, but life is a balance of art and science. You got to know your stuff. You got to know your facts. Teachers have to be able to teach that, have the skill set they need, and that's the science of education. That's the science of life. But there's also the art of teaching, and there's also the art of living, and that's where that's joy and love and enthusiasm and passion for what you want to do. And that's also has a big place in the classroom. And, Manny, I hope that teacher you had, inspired you every day, and you remember that. I mean, I'm a little fixated on the musical Hamilton, and I talked about it a lot. But it brought history to life for people that otherwise thought it was a dead science. And to me, that's part of what we're trying to do every day in this state is we convince you that we love you, and want to provide you the very best education, which is skills and also who you are, so that you're able to live a great life right here in Connecticut. Thank you, everybody.
All right, well, I actually want to build on that last topic, which the commissioner was talking to Eugene about, and we heard it on stage about incentivizing the career of teaching. And I know, Milan, you were like shaking your head pretty emphatically when we talked about incentivized teaching. You were writing some notes, so I hate to put you on the spot, but I'm going to do it because I saw you writing notes after that. And so I want to kick it back out to the students about what were your thoughts, because you all were shaking your heads pretty emphatically. What are your thoughts? You seem to be pretty excited about what the commissioner was saying.
Yeah, so I think that looking at teaching today and what Manny was saying about how all these different teachers are giving us great ways to learn through different learning styles and teaching the individual person. And I remember what you said before, how like we're building not just our learning, but the whole person. And I think that's really important when looking at kids today, because it's not just the learning that we need, it's really getting kids enthusiastic about what they want to learn and getting them interested in the different classes that they have opportunities to. And making those opportunities is definitely the first step, because whether you're coming from a different town in New Haven or if you're coming from a small town in like East Granbury, you should have the same resources and opportunities to really get interested in the learning that you see, and also being able to connect with different teachers based on those interests. So I think that's a really important thing to look at when we see teaching.
Thank you for that.
So I want to kick it over to Ariana, because she had a question that I think is also relevant, and it talks about supporting our students, in the school system. And so, Ariana, did you want to share your question?
Sure, yeah. So I feel as though, in our sociocultural climate, we currently have a lot of group polarization. And, one unfortunate thing that I find occurs is that there are certain groups of people who hold very hostile beliefs toward members of marginalized communities. So I was wondering what, if anything, is planned to promote inclusivity and empathy in the classroom, particularly as it applies to students who identify as LGBT?
Thank you for the question. So you bring up a very important point. You know, this creating a culture of tolerance, I don't think that's enough. We need to celebrate diversity. We need to be proud of the fact that we come from different backgrounds, we have different beliefs, but we can come together around one thing. And the uptick in lack of tolerance has really required that we take it very seriously and that we're proactive in how we address this. So some of the strategies that I think I've seen that have worked well are giving students a voice within our schools to communicate their beliefs and share and be around people that support them or that have similar interests. I think we also have to be proactive in challenging beliefs of intolerance or addressing stereotypes and not be afraid. This is, educational institutions are the places for that, to help build. The leaders of tomorrow are not just going to be good at building things. They're not just going to be good at making certain things. They have to learn how to work with different people. So it's our responsibility, not passively, but to design our schools to ensure that we're giving kids opportunities to engage with others. And when there is conflict, handle it in a way that we're teaching them the skills on how to be successful in the future. So to answer your question more specifically, our high schools especially, but also our middle schools. I have a middle school daughter who I know these conversations are coming up with her friends. We should not turn a blind eye to that. We need to address that. I believe in youth dialogue sessions where students like this, students are telling leaders in the districts and in the schools what's working, what's not working, what our schools needs to be fixed. Because you ask any student, they'll tell you what's going on. And if we incorporate their voice, they have voice, we're not giving them voice. If we incorporate their voice in school leadership, in district leadership, we're going to have a district that's more responsive to the needs of today. And we're going to produce students that are much more prepared to be successful in college and career.
So one of the things, Commissioner, that came up was around school funding, not a surprise. And, pretty astutely, Natalia said that was one of the things that she wanted to discuss. And so, Natalia, did you want to bring up your question?
Yeah. So how can we better address the unlevel playing field for students coming from inadequately funded or resourced schools? So I come from Derby High School, which is a really small school. We have under 400 kids, and we just don't have the same sorts of class offerings that maybe bigger or better resource schools have. The class rigor isn't the same. And so when the school doesn't offer, for example, AP Bio or something, or AP Physics, you're missing out what many other students have, and it makes you, I guess, unprepared and less competitive. And when students from my school go to a top university or NYU, they find it hard to keep up with their peers because they were unprepared. Or maybe when there's less opportunities, the student can't really take advantage of them, and then it just makes it that much harder to keep up later.
Thank you for the question, and thank you for the self-advocacy that I'm hearing there. I love that. So you have agency to say, this is what I think needs to be fixed. It kind of reminds me of Abby's question, where she felt, listen, I want to be competitive when I graduate, and I'm taking advantage of everything my high school offers, yet it doesn't compare to that district.
Right.
We have to do better. We have to do better. So we have to be innovative in how we're offering programming to students. And we need to hear from students to say, I need more of this, I need more of that. So some of the things, as I mentioned earlier, innovative course design. So are we just offering traditional courses? Or are there options that exist, whether they're online, through innovative partnerships either with other districts or with even colleges? I want to see us do better in the state, connecting with our community colleges or four-year colleges to give students opportunity to take college courses in high school. Because students like you that are going to work hard and take advantage of every opportunity, you have the potential to graduate with an associate's degree. We need to make sure we design our schools not to prevent that from happening. So while I don't have a tick sheet of how to fix that issue now, I can assure you that we're going to be focusing on that 100%. And I want to hear from you more to see if things get better in the coming months, in the coming year. Okay?
So I only have, Sophia is the last student that we haven't heard from, and then we're going to maybe open it up if there's some other questions that students have kind of brainstormed as we've been hearing this rich discussion. But Sophia, you have a younger sibling,
I have
right?
two
younger siblings. And as we know, we're like living and evolving in this dynamic world. And, your siblings are going to be growing up in a world different than what you've gone through. And so maybe you can share some of the things that maybe they're going through that you didn't have to go through and vice versa.
Mm-hmm. So the first thing that I noticed, my sister is starting middle school tomorrow, actually. And the first big drastic change that I noticed was the fact that every kid in her school get Chromebooks. They have a one-to-one student-to-personal device. And that's so great, and it's so innovative. But the problem that I see with other parents or other middle school students that I've talked to is there's almost a sort of communication gap between the teacher and the student because of these devices. For example, on our Google Classroom, where you post the homework and submit assignments, it's so easy for there to just be an increase in a communication gap if either the teacher just leaves a comment that says, oh, you need to fix this, or the student asks a question through there that kind of undermines the importance of actually talking to your teacher and being able to form that relationship. Because the fact is, it's really important to have a teacher that you can talk to in your school, a teacher that you can trust, a teacher that you can depend on. And I'm fortunate to have that, but at the same time, there's almost an issue of will that still be happening to the same degree because it's so easy to just skip that step of actually communicating.
Thank you for the question, and congratulations. I know you're going to be on the board, the state board. I look forward to working with you and Milan also. So thank you for the question. Technology should enhance education, not replace relationships. Mm-hmm. Right? So it's still a people business. It's still a relationship. We look to teachers not just for the content knowledge, but for that experience that Manny spoke of earlier. So as we do look at technology, but the reality is technology is a currency of communication now, right? Mm-hmm. That's where we are now, not in the future. That's where we are now. So as educators, we have to embrace that and learn how to use it as a tool to enhance what we do, not replace communication. And for many systems, many districts, it's a fairly new transition. Mm-hmm. So part of the work, what I'm hearing from you is, part of the work is to ensure that when we do it in a way that's sensitive to the importance of the relationships that are established in school, mm-hmm. With sensitivity to the importance that constant feedback plays between the student and the teacher, or what I heard earlier, student to student, because I think that collaborative learning from one another is something that we don't want to compromise as we introduce technology. But you're right, it is the great equalizer, so having technology access allows students to have the same access. We were talking about access, allows them to have the access that other students in more resource districts have. Mm-hmm. Thank you for the question.
Any last thoughts or questions? Yeah, Milan, do you want to close this out?
Yeah. So I just have one thing I wanted to touch on before we finish off. But I think that one of the biggest out of classroom factors that is affecting a lot of students throughout Connecticut, throughout the entire U.S., is definitely mental health. And with so many different factors, when we look at gun violence, when we look at bullying, and so many different things that affect this, I see in my community and in other communities around us that so many students are dealing with countless different psychiatric disorders, and it's affecting not only their school performance, but their social life, their interactions with teachers and students, and how they engage with their community. And that's so detrimental not only to the person themselves, but everyone around them. And I think that we need to be able to come up with new programs and plans to really help combat this issue and create better environments for students. And I think that there's definitely are resources in many, many schools with school psychologists, guidance counselors, and things like that. But access to those different resources is very hard for students because they aren't very willing to go to a trusted adult. And one of the programs that I've been thinking of to instill in my school is looking at how peers can help do that and bring students who are struggling with these issues to trusted adults, because that's a really, really important step to take. And I was just wondering, what would you think about that?
You're absolutely right. This is where this peer relational equity that's built up between you and your friends could move the needle in terms of getting students the help that they need. So I applaud the fact that you're bringing up the importance of high schoolers talking to other high schoolers about saying, hey, listen, don't worry about it, there's somebody here that can help you, because that is often the difficult. I agree that students today are facing a lot of things, they're seeing a lot of things, and not to mention the trauma sometimes that they come in with. So a well-balanced program needs to make sure that we take care of the whole child. So reading, writing, and math is important, but we also have to make sure that the emotional health of children is okay. And we have to make sure that not only do we provide the right support for teachers that need to develop skills to do that, but also recognize that a teacher can't do it. We can't put all these expectations on just classroom teachers to fix all this. We have to resource our schools with social emotional supports. We have to partner with agencies that do this work to support us too. So it's a double edge. We have to give educators the right tools to meet the needs of their kids, emotionally, socially, and academically. But we also have to do more to partner with like-minded agencies, whether they're governmental agencies or community agencies that share an interest in helping children be successful. So the better we partner, the better outcomes we can have. But I love what you stated when you said we need to do something as students. And again, the students are at the center. You have, and I know we're closing, so I want to just close with this. This group here, you represent the greatest resource we have in the state of Connecticut. You represent the greatest resource we have in improving educational outcomes for kids. You're the greatest resource. So to the extent that we can bring you into the conversation and work with you and help you lead some of this work, the extent we do that will determine how successful we can be together. I know you're missing your first day of school, right? But and all of you start school tomorrow. I wish you the 2 more days. I wish you the very best this year. I thank you for starting off the year, starting off my year with this forum. I wish you the very best. I know you're going to be successful. I hope it's an excused absence. If not, let me know. I can make a call.
You know people.
Yeah. But I thank you for your time and for your preparation. I could tell you were prepared for today, and I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
So thank you again to our students. Thank you to all of our advocates. And I think it's been an inspirational day, both to hear from our commissioner, our governor, and the students. I'm going to ask our commissioner if he can close us out with some closing remarks, just to hear basically what you've gleaned from the day and what are our marching orders, so we can support you.
Sure.
As we move forward.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation. I appreciate Governor Lamont's support and focus on ensuring that education is still that greatest lever in Connecticut for success for our students, but I also think it's the best economic driver we have in the state. I want to thank members of the board that are here, partners, State Department of Ed team here, elected officials that really prioritize education and believe in the power of our educational system. Our hosts at Wilcox, Chris, team over here. Just, we have the opportunity to do some amazing things and lead the nation. And I know that if we, as Eugene said, it still takes a village, right? If the village comes together around the goals of improving outcomes for all kids, ensuring equitable access for students, partnering with our business and colleges so that all of our kids have an opportunity at successful life, they will come back and make Connecticut help Connecticut continue to thrive. It's going to take all of us together around a shared goal. And what better way to be reminded of that goal than to have them sitting here with us? You're the reason why we do what we do. So thank you very much for being here, and I look forward to partnering with those in the room. Thank you.
Thank you again, everyone.